Week 33 Overview. Clinton's Lost Opportunity. This week we cover Bill Clinton, a man who came into office with so much opportunity and left with so little to show for it. Clinton was a politician with amazing strengths and weaknesses. He was the first baby boomer to be elected president, the first Democratic president in 12 years, and the first Democrat to be re-elected in 52 years. Many Americans expected great things from this new Democrat, but Clinton's legacy was scandal, not success. Clinton's youth, inexperience, and lack of personal discipline contributed to his difficulties. He also had powerful opponents, some in his own Democratic Party, but mostly in the strongly united Republican Party, who made it difficult, sometimes impossible, for him to get his initiatives passed. Clinton didn't quit in the face of opposition, however. When Republicans took control of the House of Representatives in 1994, Clinton hired new advisors, including the author of our rhetoric-level book, David Gergen, who had previously served 3 Republican presidents. Clinton announced that the era of big government was over and started working on initiatives that Republicans could support, welfare reform, for example, and other changes that led to the first federal budget surplus in 30 years. Clinton's biographers say that he often put the needs of the nation above his own political gain. But he also gave in to personal temptations, and when he was questioned about those, he lied under oath. That perjury led to an impeachment trial. Though Clinton was not convicted by the Senate, he was forever soiled by the scandal, a man who entered the White House with great promise, left with great regrets. Clinton's life was marked by hardship at an early age. He was born William Jefferson Blythe III, but his father died a few months before he was born. After several years as a single mother, Virginia Blythe married Roger Clinton, who turned out to be an alcoholic with a gambling problem. Young Billy took his stepfather's last name at the age of 14. In 1963, on a trip to Washington, D.C., Clinton met President Kennedy. From that point on, he pursued politics. He graduated from Yale Law School and started teaching law in Arkansas. 1 year later, he ran for Congress and lost. He was elected Attorney General of Arkansas in 1976 and then governor 2 years later. He was the youngest governor in the country at the time, and when he lost his re-election bid 4 years later, he joked that he had become the youngest ex-governor in American history. Clinton didn't let that stop him, however. The comeback kid was back in the governor's office 4 years later and spent the next 10 years there. From there, he ran for president. Clinton ran against George H.W. Bush as a moderate who would bring the nation back to the people. Clinton focused like a laser beam on the economy, appealing to the middle class whom he said had not gained from the trickle-down economic policies of Reagan and Bush. His promises appealed to many working-class Americans, and he defeated both Bush and third-party candidate Ross Perot for the presidency. Democrats hoped they could finally roll back 12 years of Republican rule. It didn't work out quite as they expected, however. Clinton's first 2 years were rough, even though his party controlled the White House, Senate, and House of Representatives. Being governor of Arkansas did little to prepare Clinton for the pressures of Washington, and his transition team didn't make things easier. Author David Gergen says that Clinton's lack of personal discipline left him ill-prepared to govern. In addition, conservatives were united in opposition to him, while the Democratic majority was divided. Many old-guard liberals didn't like Clinton's New Democrat ideas. The big idea that they did like, health care reform, was badly bungled. Bill Clinton entrusted that project to his wife Hillary, who he had met at Yale Law School. The tactics Hillary learned at Yale and in Little Rock didn't work at Washington. Health care went down to demoralizing defeat just 6 weeks before huge Republican gains in the midterm elections of 1994. Once the Republicans took the House, things got more interesting for Clinton. Congress passed a balanced budget bill that would cut both taxes and spending to achieve a balanced budget by 2002. Clinton vetoed it. There were deep spending cuts to programs that were important to him, such as the environment, education, and health programs. With no approved budget, the government ran out of money. Republicans thought that would force Clinton to sign their bill, but they were wrong. Thousands of government workers were sent home, and offices were closed for 6 days. Clinton and Congress worked out a temporary compromise that reopened offices, but in mid-December the government shut down again for 3 more weeks. Republicans were dismayed to find that polls showed the public sided with Clinton for standing firm and defending popular programs like Medicare. Clinton emerged from the crisis unscathed. Many Americans now saw him as the hero who would save them from the radical Republicans. That helped him win re-election in 1996, the first Democrat to be re-elected since Franklin D. Roosevelt. As a new Democrat with a strong economic advisory team, Clinton generally operated as a fiscal conservative. But in a departure from Reaganomics, Clinton called for raised taxes on the most wealthy Americans and some spending cuts in government programs such that the deficit would, over time, be eliminated. With the federal government acting responsibly, Wall Street investors gained confidence, and the Federal Reserve lowered interest rates for all Americans who needed to borrow money. The economy boomed, and stock prices rose as unemployment and inflation remained low. In addition to the tightening of the government's budget, productivity was high, and thus the economy prospered. In 1998, President Clinton proposed the first balanced budget since 1969. A year later, the government was running a surplus, years ahead of the most ambitious schedule the Republicans in Congress had set. The Clinton years saw their share of violence at home and abroad. The Cold War was over, and the Twin Towers were still standing, but the world was a dangerous place. Clinton sent American ground troops to one of the provinces of the former Yugoslavia, where the Serbs, an Orthodox Christian ethnic group, tried to maintain control over Bosnia's mostly Muslim population. Bosnia wasn't the only hotspot in what had been Yugoslavia. Clinton launched airstrikes in Kosovo to protect the Muslims who lived there from the Serbs. The African nation of Rwanda was being ripped in two by a civil war between the Tutsi and Hutu tribes. The ruling Hutus killed 500,000 Tutsis and drove millions more out of the country. On April 19, 1993, a standoff between federal authorities and a Texas cult ended in a fiery massacre that killed many of the cult members and their children. 2 years later, two members of an anti-government militia group marked the anniversary of the Waco massacre by blowing up a federal building in Oklahoma City, killing 168 people. Your children weren't assigned any readings about a series of attacks by al-Qaeda and other Islamic groups in the Clinton years, but you may want to tell them about a series of attacks in that period. A first failed attempt to blow up the World Trade Center in 1993, attacks on the USS Cole while in port in Yemen, attacks on U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania in 1998. Clinton himself escaped an assassination attempt by agents of Osama bin Laden in the Philippines in 1996. It was during the 1990s that many of the technological conveniences that you might take for granted today came into widespread use, partly because of the long economic boom that Americans enjoyed during the Clinton years. The Internet, the cell phone, DVDs, digital cameras, cable TV, and PDAs were all inventions that became commonplace in many American homes. The culture was changing in other ways, too. The nation became increasingly polarized in the Clinton years. In society as a whole, and in politics in particular, people gravitated towards people they agreed with and away from those with different opinions. Clinton's era was marked by the culture wars between these increasingly polarized people. Some of these conflicts date back to previous decades, issues like abortion, affirmative action, and homosexual rights, but others emerged for the first time in the 1990s. New terms like political correctness and multiculturalism became prominent. I won't spend much time on the most memorable part of the Clinton presidency. Too much has already been said about his indiscretions with an intern at the White House. This is a family-friendly curriculum, so it's up to you as a parent to decide how much detail you want your children to know about the events that led to Clinton's impeachment. He wasn't impeached for his X-rated activities in the White House. The House of Representatives passed articles of impeachment against him because he lied under oath. The Constitution allows for the impeachment of a president for high crimes and misdemeanors. In the end, a majority of Americans, and the senators who represent them, decided that lying about personal misconduct wasn't bad enough to justify removing a president.